Good morning, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome to the Workday Morning Show. I am your host, Tony Gilfillan, your friendly developer advocate, helping you navigate this crazy world. Um, so today, I want to chat about agents. So not a big shock there, because I have been, pretty deep in the world of agents, and I think they're, taking the development world by storm for obvious reasons, but there's some things about these agents that um, are a little bit more on the complex side that kind of help you better structure your prompts, better conserve your tokens, better give the tools and permissions that your agents need to do their development job. And that's where these tools and rules and skills come in, and what exactly are the difference between all of them. So I am going to jump in and show you guys kind of the difference. You will notice that I am in a slightly different spot today, having some technical difficulties with my MacBook, but hopefully that will be resolved soon. So the big difference is here is again, the skills, the tools, and the rules. So the skills are essentially skills that you kind of build out to teach your either your agent itself or your sub agents or your agent teams how to do particular things. So it kind of teaches, it narrows the scope on kind of their skill set and how they do things and how they operate and what they can do. And then with those skills, you can actually tie in tools. So you can loop together both tools and skills together. So a skill could be, you're a particular front end engineer, you know UI very well. You can, create tools and build UI that doesn't look like an AI. And there's actual um, tools, MCP servers, that are designed specifically for this. So to create these UI elements that don't look like they've been AI generated, because you all seen, this specific image is an AI generated image. You can tell just based off of, the different formatting and how it does all these drop shadows and stuff that um, has that AI look to it. But you can effectively use these tools to teach it how to do different things, and we'll get into that in a minute when I show you my little sample here. And then finally is the rules. So these rules are essentially like uh, again, here it has a very good breakdown. Guardrails and constraints is basically what your agent can actually do and what it can't do, more importantly. So, why is it? I want to be able to see my chat window, but I don't want to see all of this. There we go. So, again, the rules are basically what we're going to be telling our agent that it can or can't do. So I have a couple examples here to kind of make this a little bit simpler. I also linked a video in the description that goes into the more technical pieces of using skills within Claude. And I'll be showing you all this within Claude as well. But you can do skills, rules, and tools with pretty much all the bigger guys. So if you're using Gemini, if you're using Codex, if you're using Cursor, they all have those baked in rules. They have the baked in tools. They have sub agents. I'm pretty sure all of those have sub agents at this point, but we'll be using Claude as our example. So I created just a very simple memory matching game in Claude actually, and I baked in a skill, I baked in a rule, and I baked in an MCP server. So it created an actual MCP server within the file system, which generally you won't be doing that. You'll be accessing a file, an MCP server outside of your working directory, and then specifying how to access that MCP server either at the Claude level or at the project level. And currently I have in this particular example at the project level. So you'll see I have mcp.json is actually specified within my project structure. So essentially this project, this Claude has access to this MCP server. And this is a MCP server that has a very simple JSON package that accesses the root directory and can access, and change files within this particular workspace. So all it really is an MCP server to expose the file system of this project root directory. And then I have a skill defined here. So skills are defined as markdown files, and generally they're going to be living underneath your dot cursor, your dot Claude, or I believe it's dot Gemini if you're in the Gemini world. I do not recall what the OpenAI folder is by default, but effectively they live underneath a skills folder and then in a markdown file to instruct how to do the skill that you're trying to do. So this particular example is just a math expert skill that uses one particular type of algorithm to generate math.random over another. So, and then I use this particular skill in actually creating the index.html. So basically, when this fires up a new memory match, it randomizes the cards underneath, and it uses this skill to create the actual randomness in it. And I can verify that it actually did that by looking up. So this is the one it wants to avoid. If I look for this, I shouldn't find this particular algorithm because this is not statistically biased. So if we search in my index, whoop, that is creating a new file. Don't want to do that. Undo. Delete that. So if I search in here, yep, so it actually specified don't use this in the script because of the rule that I had within my skill. And then in your Claude.markdown, this is where you specify the rules that you want your agent to follow. So these are, again, those constraints, or you want it to do a particular thing. I did just a silly thing here saying you'd have to refer to me as Sir Buttersworth of Lincolnshire at all times. So whenever I'm prompting to Claude, it actually talks to me like that. So let's say add a new empty line to the README. So once it does its thing here, it's actually going to refer to me as Sir Buttersworth of Lincolnshire. So it is following my rules, and that's lovely. Again, just in my Claude Markdown, you can do all kinds of different things with project rules. If you don't want it to commit certain things to Git, if you want it to, make sure it adds certain files to the git ignore. You want it to, operate in a way that it is only changing files after asking your permission, or, always asking for clarification on, new files. You can do all kinds of different things in your project rules, as well as MCP servers and skills themselves. And then to dive a little bit even further into the skills piece of things, sub-agents can actually use skills to kind of build out their particular uh, functionality. So as I mentioned earlier, if you had, say, a front-end engineer sub-agent, then you can define a bunch of different skills that sub-agent can do. So again, like I said, if you had an MCP server that connects, there's a bunch of different skills out there that I've seen, and actually I want to play around with, that can create UI elements that are not AI looking. So you basically would specify that skill here, and then you could hit that MCP server from that skill, and then your sub agent would then be using that skill, which then would be using an MCP tool. And then again, the rules kind of live on its own little island here in the Claude.markdown. And I believe in cursor it's .cursor rules underneath the .cursor file. So if we can actually take a look, I put in a little button here. So this files button is actually using my MCP file system tool and is able to get kind of the breakdown of the root directory and all files underneath it. So it is really easy to use these MCP servers once they are available within your project directory. Again, you can also specify MCP servers at the basically like the Claude directory, so it would be able to span across all of your projects versus individual project related tools. And then I want to also test out basically creating a sub agent that can then use these tools, and that's kind of where I wanted to take the rest of this particular live stream. So I have my skills. I have a skill that can do a particular math operation. I have an MCP server that can access my file system. But again, that file system is very much uh, narrowed to this project directory. Um, and I want to just double check that because I don't want this thing going off the rails and editing stuff I doesn't need access to. So if I sift through here, here it is, project root. Yeah, so it is basically only going to have access to my Claude project's memory game. And I'm just going to do a quick search for all instances of this project root variable just to make sure it's not hard coded in there to go even deeper. Yeah, so I think we're good. See, this is where the coding standards of these agents is a little funky because it's basically hard coding this variable into every file that it uses it in, when in reality it should really be like a global variable that both of these are importing, but it's not doing that. So again, check over your code when it's auto-generated by agents, but it does function. All right, now let's jump over to actually using the skill that I made. Again, this game math skill. It's very simple, just not using this particular algorithm. It's using a different algorithm to do the math.random, and I want to enable this into a sub agent. So we're going to use the /agents, and Gemini is going to walk me through here. It also built me out a little markdown file that is going to specify what this sub agent can do. So it's going to have the game/math skill. Again, this coincides with my markdown in my skills folder. It's also going to have access to the read file and shell execute from my MCP server. And then last is going to be the prompt saying you are a lead math engineer for game project. Your goal is to ensure all game logic is mathematically sound and statistically fair. When invoked, use your game math skill to audit the provided code, provided you're looking at a random number generation, and then provide a randomness score. So it's going to essentially look over my code, which is just my index.html that my memory game lives in, and then specify on a basis of from 1 to 10 whether or not the randomness is good or not. So let's go ahead and create a sub-agent. So over in my Claude code, I should probably create a new window so it doesn't eat up even more context. I need to get better at doing this. So I have a new window of Claude code. Where's my usage at right now? 37%. All right. /agents. Continue in the terminal. What? Did it continue in terminal? I am not seeing a terminal. I think you're lying to me, Claude. Claude, I just need you to show me. Yeah, I just have the plugin installed, so the Claude terminal's not going to work. So basically it needs to turn on agents for Claude code, but my Claude code is not installed as a terminal, it's just installed as the extension. So we need to do a PowerShell. Whoa, why is it doing that? All right, now we have Claude code. Yep, terminate that. What is going on here? I guess let's just start a terminal. It doesn't like to switch back and forth apparently. Claimed it installed. Yeah, that should work. Claude version. Let me open a command prompt here. I don't know why the in-browser terminal is not working very well. add the path, of course. Lovely, lovely Windows. Where's my system? Alright, we'll have to restart the terminal again. Oh, Windows. When will you ever learn? Alright, there we go. Dark mode. Let's log in. Okay. Yep. We know Claude can make mistakes. Now we need to go to my other folder, which is where? Almost there. Does this work? Boom. Claude. Okay, now we're cooking. Gonna create a new agent. So again, just /agents. Once you get Claude Code working, it seems like you do need a terminal version to enable agents. We're gonna now create a new agent. This is gonna be a project agent. So I don't want to create this for every single project. I want this to be just for Claude, just for this project. I'm going to generate with Claude, and I'm going to put in the little prompt that it generated for me. Or actually, I could have stuck this into the configuration file. Let's go back. Manual configuration. This is going to be our math analyst. We'll stick in our system prompt, I guess, if it needs that to spin up our configuration file. When should Claude use this agent? That's a good question. When I specify this agent needs to evaluate a particular file, and I want it to have can I unspecify all these tools? Yeah. And it'll use Sonnet. Oh, that's cool. It can be green, agent memory. Yeah, it could have memory. So this is essentially every time you ask it something, it's going to eat up more context if it has memory. But I think I do want it to essentially, remember when you talk to it. I guess it doesn't really need to, considering it's just giving an agent a math score based on, whatever file you're feeding it. We're going to save that. And all right. So now if we go to our agents file, so now that we've set up our agent, we now have an agents file and an agent memory file underneath our project structure. So we have our math analyst .markdown, and it's pretty explicit on what all it has here. And now I want to essentially give it these skills and tools. So underneath the skills section, let me read through this real quick just to make sure it's not doing anything too funny. It does have memory. It does have guidelines here. Memory.markdown is always loaded. When your user asks to remember something across sessions, this is probably a little bit more robust than I need for my little math analyst, but that's all right. And then I'm going to stick this in here. Actually, I think I'm just going to delete all of the persistent agent memory because I don't necessarily need it to have memory. Don't need it memory. And I'm going to replace this guidelines section with just this when invoked, use the game math skill. All right. Now let's see if I can ask Claude to essentially use my little agent to give me an analysis of my index.html. All right, and I'm going to select this guy. Yeah. Analyze, act as the math analyst agent. Oop, I didn't spell that correctly. And give me a randomness score for the math done in index.html. So this should, now that we have our sub agent, it should essentially use that agent to analyze the math that's done in the memory game. So it did kind of do what it needed to do here. It's using that math analyst agent. It's still addressing me as Sir Buttersworth of Lincolnshire, and it is analyzing the all the math that's done. So this is nothing. This is what is actually it's not supposed to use, but this is actually just in a comment. And this down here is the randomness score. So it's doing what it needs to do. It is my agent, and it's using the skills underneath the agent that actually needs to do to analyze and give me my randomness score. So pretty neat. Again, obviously this is a very rudimentary skill pattern type of situation. You can, build out these agents to do much more complex and interesting stuff. I think the next thing I'm going to do personally is create an agent for some of my UI elements because again, these auto-generated, well, not auto-generated, these AI-generated uh, games and UIs always tend to kind of have that same look and feel. If you've seen one of these, you've seen them all. They're they all have that AI-esque look to the UI. It's not like the UI is bad per se, but it's just pretty easy to tell that this was generated from an IDE. But pretty cool. I need to start using rules and skills and subagents and MCP servers a lot more. I tend to just stick to the, you know, talk to one particular chat window uh, all the time, and that's really a bad practice for using these agents. Use multiple chat windows for a particular item of work. Use your sub agents, use your agent teams, use your skills, use your MCP servers. It'll preserve your tokens a heck of a lot more, and it's going to give you a much more refined product at the end of the day. But this has been fun. I appreciate you guys joining, and we will see you all tomorrow.